Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. Yeah, that is not good. Genesis chapter 4, verses 9 through 22. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord, and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Lamech took 2 wives, and the name of one was Adah, and the name of the other Zillah. Adah bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have cattle. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. Zillah bore Tubal-Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. Cain is a living contradiction. He relies on God for his life. God created him, and then God safeguards his life by placing a sign on him so others might not take vengeance upon him for Abel's murder. But Cain also denies this reliance by taking matters into his own hands, most notably taking his own brother's life in a misguided attempt to have his sacrifice approved as Abel's was. I think if we're honest, we all often want to be in control. We're bombarded with messages telling us to be strong, self-sufficient, a self-made man or woman. We have all kinds of tools to help us do this. Productivity apps, this or that gadget, test prep courses, self-help books, fitness and diet protocols, and so many more. We tell ourselves that we want to serve God and rely on Him, but do we really mean it? So often we say one thing in our words, but our actions speak more loudly. In other words, there's a little bit of Cain in each of us. Or, to put it otherwise, all of us are descendants of Cain. The Catechism reminds us of this when it talks about avarice or greed. We tend to think that these have to do with money, and they do, but even more than that, they have to do with power. In paragraph 2536, we read, "The 10th commandment forbids avarice arising from a passion for riches and their attendant power." Riches have little use apart from what they enable us to buy or to do, and so power is really what underlies the unbridled pursuit of wealth. The desire for power is a deep-seated one, and this is one reason why greed is one of the 7 capital vices. The capital vices are not the worst possible sins, though we sometimes call them the 7 deadly sins. What makes them deadly is that they are the root sins from which many other sins spring forth. Most of the sins we commit can be traced back to the 7 capital vices. So, avarice and its pursuit of power run deep indeed. And our desire for control shows that Cain lives on inside each of us. So how do we leave behind our inner Cain? If we go back to Cain, we should notice that his punishment, to be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, is actually a mercy. Through wandering, Cain is meant to learn to rely on God rather than on his own skills as a settled, stable farmer. But what does Cain do? Scripture tells us he dwelt in the land of Nod. He settled down again. Cain doesn't trust God and again continues to live a contradiction. Nod means wandering. It is the land of wanderers, but Cain doesn't wander. He settles. Not only that, he builds a city. Even more than a farm, a city is built for self-sufficiency. Finally, Cain's line of descendants discovers the arts and crafts. Tent makers for shelter, cattle ranchers for food, music for leisure, and metal tools for arts and crafts and production. The creativity and resourcefulness of Cain and his descendants reveals the ingenuity of human beings created in the image of God. But an image means we are not the source. And even more, it means we must rely upon the source. Without the source, the image ceases to exist. When we reflect on our own gifts, talents, tools, and resources, we should ask ourselves, do these always serve our reliance on God, or do they undermine it? In the end, the solution is to see that Cain is an antitype for Christ, who always sought to do his Father's will. Abel, on the other hand, offered pleasing sacrifice to God, as Christ also did. He is a type of Christ, a precursor and anticipatory sign of Jesus. In Advent, we await Christ's coming. And while we wait, we remember those great figures who foreshadowed and prepared the way for Christ. Abel stands among these figures. He is a type of Christ. His brief life reminds us of Christ's simple obedience to his Father's will and the pleasing sacrifice he made on the cross. But Cain can also help us prepare for Christ's coming. He is an antitype. His murderous envy and his rejection of relying on God remind us of the evil that Christ came to triumph over and to save us from. In other words, there's a little bit of Cain in each of us. The Jesse Tree tradition gives us the chance to walk alongside these figures, to put ourselves in their shoes, and to learn from them, to imitate their virtues, and to avoid their vices. Advent is a time to leave behind our inner Cain and to rediscover our inner Abel. It is a time to return to Christ and to prepare ourselves to rejoice ever more greatly at his coming. Looking for more great Catholic content? Well, you're in luck. Because you're enjoying Rooted, we're very excited to offer you 50% off of Formed for 3 months. So use promo code ROOTED and get those 3 months at half price. Click the link in the description below to sign up today.